Now that they've given the okay to sell lab-grown meat in the United States, I figured it was a good time to return to Walmart and see if they're still selling magnetic meat with this tiny, very strong, rare earth magnet. And right away I found that it's still magnetic. I showed this a couple of years ago, and I'd heard about it, and I was actually trying to debunk it, try to find some other reason why the magnet's sticking. It's easy for people to look at a video and list off reasons why this isn't true, but when you go see for yourself, you'll see it's true. Look, hamburgers too. Enjoy your Magna Burger. When you try this yourself, you can feel that the magnet is being pulled to the meat. It's not sticking because it's sticky. Look at this one. We're going to slow this one down in a minute because you can see the magnet doesn't just drop right down. It's pulled out of my fingers at an angle because it's attracted to the meat. And if you watch closely in just a second, you'll see it. But it doesn't do it justice. Not the justice it does when you see for yourself. Well, the minute's almost up, so go to my channel if you want to see more of this and more. There's a lot of disturbing things out there when you're paying attention.
So listen, you are going to want to be really careful when you go to the stores now, because for the first time in history, the government has approved the sale of meat that does not come from a farm, but this meat is actually being grown in a lab by scientists. And yes, I did say the government just approved this to be sold to us. And don't you worry, I'm about to tell you all about the process, how this even works, when this will take effect, where is this being sold, and everything else you need to know. So I just came across this. USDA allows lab-grown meat to be sold to U.S. consumers, and this was actually passed on June 21st, and at the time of this video it has already been making its way to certain restaurants. And don't worry, I'm going to tell you where it is being sold at this moment and when it's going to make its way to stores and everything else too. But the crazy thing about all of this is I took a close look at this meat that is being grown in a lab, and I compared it to the meat that comes from a farm, and I could not tell the difference. Let me know down below in the comments if you can tell which one is lab grown and which one actually comes from a farm. But in case you are just as confused as I was when I first heard that they're creating this meat in the lab, and you're wondering how in the world is even possible, let me break it all down for you. So what they are doing is they are taking cells from live animals, whether it be live chicken or from the egg. And extracting these cells is supposed to be a painless process for these animals. So once they take the cells out of them, then they are in the lab examining these cells. They basically go through and look for the cells that are most likely to taste good, to reproduce quickly, and the cells that are going to produce the healthiest meat. How in the world they can actually look at the cell and tell if it is going to taste good or not? That's above me, y'all. I have no idea. But once they choose these cells, they make them what they call immortalized, which means that it can continue to produce cells indefinitely. There is no stop time to this thing. And at this point, they take the cells and they place them in these tanks here. And these tanks are called cell cultivators. They provide warmth and energy for these cells to grow. And in these cultivators, that's when the experts or scientists add sugar, spice, and everything nice. They add all of the nutrients and vitamins that is needed for these cells to grow into meat. And after about 4 to 6 weeks at Good Meat and 2 to 3 weeks at Upside Foods, the meat is then harvested from these tanks. And then they take it and pretty much mold it and shape it into the form of a chicken breast. Now again, if you are anything like me, I'm wondering when they are growing this meat, what is coming from it? Like, are they making a whole chicken in the lab? Is this some sci-fi type of stuff? I need to find out. But they said that in these tanks, only the meat is what is grown. There are no feathers, there are no bones. Just good meat for you to eat. So this is supposed to be similar to the process of how beer is brewed, but instead of all the yeast and bacteria, they're growing animal cells. is this real meat? They are taking these cells from animals and they are just putting it through a process to grow and multiply them in a lab. And just to clear the air, this is not considered vegan, vegetarian. Again, it is coming from animal cells. It is considered meat. And the reason that they are doing this, they say, is to create a way to not have to raise and slaughter so many chicken. Because in the United States alone in 2021, over 9.3 billion chicken were slaughtered. That's in the US alone.
But there's one glaring problem here with creating this animal-free meat. It's not actually animal-free. That special FBS serum I just mentioned, that stands for fetal bovine serum, which is collected from the dying fetuses of slaughtered cows. It's pretty gruesome. And so far, scientists have not found a way to create lab-grown meat without it. Why is it so important? And is there any way around it? Fetal bovine serum is a serum made from the blood of cow fetuses. If a cow is going for slaughter and happens to be pregnant, the fetus is removed and its blood drained, all while it dies a slow death. The fetus is kept alive for as long as possible during this process to ensure the quality of the blood remains good. The blood is then refined, resulting in fetal bovine serum, or FBS. And so far, all lab-grown meat requires this serum. When the stem cells are removed from the animal, as I mentioned, they are placed in a bioreactor tank to replicate and grow. And here the FBS is added. FBS prevents the replicating stem cells from committing suicide. Normally, cells have a mechanism that tells them they're growing in the wrong place and shuts it down. This is normally a good thing and keeps different parts of the body developing properly. But when cells are growing in a metal tank and not a body, this warning system needs to be turned off. And for whatever reason, FBS works almost completely universally. When added to any type of cell, that cell will start to replicate and grow, whether it's chicken, beef, fish, or muscle, skin, or liver cells. Other serums do exist, but none are so versatile. As of now, FBS is the essential ingredient to lab-grown meat, an ingredient that completely defeats the purpose of artificial meat. In fact, it's probably even worse than the traditional slaughterhouse. To make a single lab-grown beef burger, an estimated 50 liters of bovine serum is needed. And depending on age, a single cow fetus can yield between 150 and 550 milliliters of serum. That means to create a single burger, you need the blood of between 90 and 333 cow fetuses.
But also, chicken is not the only thing that is being grown in these labs. And no, I'm not saying they're growing humans, y'all. But they've actually grown a meatball, which means that they can make beef. They said that this particular production method is flexible across many different types of animals. And they have already demonstrated this with meat, with poultry, and with seafood cells already. So, are you really eating fish? That's another question. But I just wanted to let you know that chicken is not the only things that will be grown in these labs. So that's just something to think about and consider, y'all. So I am more than sure you are wondering, okay, Monique, where are they selling this stuff at? Well, the sale of this lab-grown meat, or as they call it, cultivated meat, has already started. On July 1st, the Upside Chicken was launched at a restaurant called Bar Cran. And that made it the very first cultivated meat or lab-grown meat that was sold in the United States. So yes, currently this is being sold in the United States. I believe in 2020 is when it first started being sold in Singapore. I'm not yet quite sure of any other countries that this is making its way to yet, or who's next. But at this point, this is something big going on right now in the United States. Now, another restaurant that this type of meat is being sold at, the one that is created by Good Meat, is going to be over in Washington, D.C. at a restaurant called China Chilcano. Yes, this has made its way to its menu and is going to be making its way to many more restaurants, but those are the only two at this time. Now you might be like, forget about restaurants, Monique, is this in the stores? I need to know about it. So they are starting out with restaurants first, and then they will be making their way to the stores. I'm not sure what that time frame will look like for when it'll be on the shelves at the stores, but it's not there right now at the time of this video. I am more than sure when you are shopping for your meat, however, though, it will be labeled as cultivated meat. And that's why I wanted to explain this to you today, let you know all of the names that is being called, because if you happen to go shopping at the store and you see something that has that cultivated meat label on it, you may not even know what that means. You may think that was just a fresher, cleaner, fancier way of them going to the farm and getting that chicken, instead of knowing that that means that it was lab grown meat. But it will also have that USDA label again, because the FDA, the USDA, they approve this to be sold, so it may blend in pretty much with the other chicken, especially if you are not paying attention to what you are picking up in the store. So just make sure you're being careful when you're out there. Make sure you're reading everything. And again, this is not me saying that I am against this at all. I'm just inquisitive right now. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on, what this means, what this tastes, what this is going to do to us. Now, a question that a lot of people have is, will this be replacing the traditional meat as we know it? Raising meat on a farm, is this going to be a thing of the past? And right now, according to Upside Foods, that answer is no. And that is simply because they said all of the things that's required to make this type of meat. And with the demand of meat increasing over the next couple of years, they probably won't be able to keep up with that demand. But this will just be another alternative, another option for people to choose when they're shopping in the store. That's what they said, not me. And who knows, that may change in the future, but that's what's going on right now.
NIH-funded study just vaccinated a human using genetically modified mosquitoes, dated July 2023. A box full of genetically modified mosquitoes successfully vaccinated a human against malaria in a trial funded by the National Institute of Health. The study involved about 200 hungry mosquitoes biting a human subject's arm. Human participants placed their arms directly over a box full of bloodsuckers. The mosquitoes gave minor versions of malaria that didn't make people sick but gave them antibodies.
And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened.
British grub. But these days you've got to spend a packet to bring home the bacon. And don't even get me started on the eggs. The cost of living crisis is hitting Britain hard, with food prices rising at the fastest rate in 40 years. But now, a new line of affordable protein is hitting our shelves. This is engineered human meat. That's right, a protein made from human cells that promises to be cheaper and tastier than any of its competitors. I'm Greg Wallace, and I'm off to visit Good Harvest, where a whopping 6 tons of human meat is engineered every day. That is stunning. With the promise of cheap meat for all, it may well be the meaty miracle we need to ease the squeeze of the cost of living.
Anyone for human meat? I'm Michelle Ackley, and while Greg comes face to face with the production line, I'll be conducting a taste test with some very picky palates.
It's really, tender. For the first time, we're going to find out where it comes from, how it's made, whoa, and what it tastes like.
Вот, 14 июля 2023 год. Павлодарская область, Железинский район. Такой произошел падеж сегодня. По непонятной причине. Массовое подыхание скота. Крупнорогатых скотовых. На ровном месте, на поле, Никаких ядов, ничего нет здесь. Просто все порядка где-то 50 голов, наверное, сдохло. Еще 50 голов в непонятном состоянии, все стоят, потому что там еще косарка лежат, все не до конца выпущены.